Please support this channel by subscribing and leaving comments. Stay well, stay safe.
But this is a real problem. We also have the possibility, which might be added, especially to that last one, but also to the limited range ones that we used murder, that some prosecutor wants to make his name by succeeding in prosecuting you for murder. Not because he thinks the Sasquatch is human, but because if he gets you prosecuted for murder, his name goes up in lights as the man who charged or got the murder charge against the Sasquatch killer. The lawyer who did a big star out of that. I think there's a little bit wrong with the legal system to get that. Okay. Any other legal attacks anyone else knows about?
Do you recommend shooting it in the background? Face to face.
It depends on who you are, what kind of weapon you got, what your circumstances are, what you want to try to accomplish. If I had a very powerful gun and I saw that best shot, I would want to study it very carefully, get it come back, hopefully we'll just try to work full hard up. But if it's not a powerful gun, I can't work. But
it would seem to me, I mean, as far as by way of shooting, or if there was, if you were fortunate or unfortunate, however you look at it, hit one with a car, whatever, or you find one. As far as the media, I would think someone, like Necklace would be someone like Cobble. Somebody who seems relatively incorruptible, because it seems like their staff would look. I mean, I think they would initially investigate, take a look at photos if you sent them, and then have people come out, because I think it's one of the more objective news forums within the media. I mean, I definitely wouldn't go with current affair or hard copy, unless Paul Freeman gave you the phone number. So that's it. I would think for media sources, that would probably be the best.
They might hire some authorities right off the bat.
Right.
And if you get the jump on it, then all the experts that want to pull up later are all already facing the 20 year
Right.
think, Dr. Krantz, that with current mitochondrial DNA techniques that have narrowed the distance between us and other great apes, the chimps, the gorilla, and so on, that anyone would have a heck of a time making a statement in court that they were human, even with the best DNA evidence available, that the community would back up. And they might say that, they could be paid to say that. Don't you suppose really that you'd be able to bring the big guns of DNA research to show that it in fact was just as much a different species as a gorilla or a chimp were?
You can bring the big guns and they're incorruptible. Yeah. I think this would bring enough media attention that the lumber companies would be able to buy the DNA animals.
But I agree, it's a threat.
Yeah. Some doesn't worry about it. There's also a question, not so much just the legal problems, the legal attacks, but there must be a more general harassment. And this comes to 2 points for one is from the news media. Now, granted, you got answers to maybe 100 first, and he got it, and everything is well documented. But then all the rest of the news media want to get all they can stories and back this up and add their own little 2 cents there. How many times have you seen somebody who's just suffered a tragedy, some poor lady whose husband was killed or her house was blown apart and their kids go in it, and the news media gets a camera on her, a microphone in their face and says, how do you feel about this, Mrs. Jones? I could kill those people. Just leave the poor lady alone. Of course, they're going to do that to you. They're going to be trampling your front yard, parking up your street, monitoring all of your neighbors. They're going to go through your garbage to find out what you eat, what you drink. They will be contacting all your neighbors, all your relatives, all your friends, your old school teachers, trying to find out anything you can about you because of human interest. The man who killed Sasquatch drinks such and such, eats such and such, was a such and such in school when he was a kid, and so on. They're going to dig that all up, and they are going to or they can't. With any luck, the individual will be shot at the time, the news media will be gone. The attention over there, and you might get less attention, but then you're going to get less what you're after out of this thing to do it. News media can be quite annoying. You might take a little I found this out that when somebody finds a good track of a Sasquatch somewhere, and if I go and look at it, especially even sometimes if I don't, I get the phone call from me constantly with news media. Dr. Krantz, can you tell me something about this? I just give up and hang on. They will all be your hand. If you had a body, you'll be unbelievable.
Okay. Would you be in favor if it was technologically feasible? And I know in your book you talk about tranquilization is difficult because they don't know the specific physiology and will kill it, but it make it go crazy. But if we were able to get to the point where we felt we had a decent load for a tranquilizer, and we were able to, let's say some group was able to do this, tranquilize one, surgically implant a detector, let it go, let it live its life, and then, because we can pick it up wherever it is by way of satellite or whatever, and then when it dies, then retrieve the body. That way avoiding the possibility of having this cold-bloodedly killing, if it was feasible.
I would say that would be ideal. Maybe even ideal to go out and find a skeleton.
Yeah.
Right. The chance of it succeeding is almost to 0. Unfortunately. Okay, this media are going to be ideal. Then you're going to have another bunch of people. These are the people who decide they are going to punish you for what you have done. They are out there. It's the same people who like to run you on murder charges on an individual basis. If they don't think that's going to work, or they don't even try to get you legally, they may just decide to take the law into their own hands. We have examples of things like this. Think about it. How about the anti-abortionists? things to abortion people. This is without taking a stand for the abortion issue, but we know what the anti-abortionists do in Canada. How about the author, Solomon Rushdie? He's under death sentence and still stands. He might get that. Somebody might just help out too. Somebody might go a cocktail to their house. There's going to be people out there who will be that. Whether they do it or not, I don't know. But I think it's a little bit scary. It's a worry about it.
If people think that's not true, a historic house on Lake Wenatchee was firebombed recently and destroyed because the owner was thought to be a trapper. He hadn't trapped beaver for 20 years. He had trapped beaver legally 20 years ago, and for that his house was firebombed a couple of years ago.
Because somebody thought he was tracking them? Or his punishment for 20 years ago?
Possibly both. They merely associated him with trapping.
And they were worried about the details.
And a lot of people find lake-hold traps repugnant with them. They try to address it through normal legal channels, but some people just that. They don't worry about the details.
Okay, it's a problem. Well, just, actually, we've got my time here, but just to throw another quickie on, suppose somebody else shot it and turned it over to you or asked you for help and guidance through the whole business, and they don't want anyone to know that they did it. That's how they're going to avoid all these problems. And now, you have to deal with it. And I've got a few people that I'm in contact with who are they're trying to shoot one now, and they're going to do exactly this, or so they say. They're going to turn it over to me. I'm going to worry about it. Now, one of the things you're going to have to worry about is what rights do they want, and how can you guarantee them the rights? When a guy comes in to visit me with his pickup truck that gets Sasquatch in the back of it, and says, okay, let's go. Come on. Get it smashed quick. Don't tell anybody who I am. I've got a few little problems. It would be nice to be able to draw the legal contract saying that such and such a Sasquatch belongs to Joe Blow. And he gets a copy of the document, and I don't. I shouldn't have a copy of it because somebody could write to my papers and find it and locate who did it. So again, a copy of the document that says all monetary rights are his, all secondary rights are mine. Yeah, you can have them. But what do you do about the document? You draw the spur of the moment. At that time, and you have to get it safe, and you can't let anybody see the guy go under the end. This could be a nasty little problem. I would like to be able to guarantee the guy all possible rights, money-wise, and he will be absolutely anonymous if he chooses to be. I think I can hold out on that. No one really knows who he is. I'll get $10,000 in cash, put it in an envelope, leave it somewhere, he comes home and fix it up. You can have a lot of fun with this. I have some big drugs for 10% slice to do the transfer.
You really thought this through.
Yeah.
But Renee just put up what you just
Now, suppose that you were, or each one of us is in this situation. You got the body, and the actual person who shot it is being protected. Suppose the media and everybody turns around and accuses you of doing it. You say, no, I didn't do it. Somebody else did. And it's a half-likely story. Well, I can plead innocence because I don't even have a gun that's capable of shooting. I used to, but suppose I think of a gun. And someone says, yeah, that's your gun that did it. Well, maybe it was a gun of the same type as mine. I might be accused of it, and I don't know how I would go with that one. But anyway, we can see we do have a little bit of problem. If you're not feeling it, we might be accused of it. And there's a lot of people out there who think, well, we didn't get the right guy, but we got the wrong guy, but at least we'll settle that and get it clean. Well, that's as much as I've got to say on this. Thank you for the cooperation.
Yes, well, a quick two-parter. What would you do if you
lucky enough to catch a live one.
I tried to get it to a zoo, probably to the zoo, and see if both is the closest one, but I would consider that likely, but seriously investigating worry about it.
I think you should reverse the question. If you have a live one, you should be worried what he's going to do with you.
Very good. Remember how, what they did with Nelson after Waterville, or was it Wellington after Trafalgar or somebody, they brought his body home in a cask of rum. What about liquid preservative, which is done with a lot of zoological specimens? If you could come up with a vat of enough rubbing alcohol or something, would that be a reasonable way to preserve a specimen?
I think not, for the simple reason that you're going to be probably locating a watertight container that big, and I doubt that you can find one that would work.
And the second part of the question is, after a presentation or a class of Rip Lytle's in Portland, a number of Bigfoot interested people were sitting around a cafe discussing some of these kinds of questions, but not with this kind of detail. And Peter Byrne was asked whether or not what he would do and so on and so forth. His concise reply was that he had a plan. I wonder if you would go so far as to say that having considered all these things, I wouldn't ask you to go through it in detail. You probably just have, but I'm wondering, do you have in fact a plan that you're comfortable with to deal with all these kinds of things?
Not in detail, no. Basically, I've gone through these problems, and I've got my preference as to how to approach it in theory, but it's not until it actually happens that I would know which way to jump. At least I've thought it out to the point where I know what most of the likely possibilities are. And of course, something totally unexpected is bound to show up.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Scott Herriott from Los Angeles.
Oh, hi. How much time do I have? I have 4 minutes now, Robert. Thank you. Anyway, no. I guess I was just kind of a spur of the moment thing, and I guess the best thing any input I might have is something that happened to me about a year and a half ago that I think, in all probability, was an encounter with one, perhaps two of these things. I've been interested in the phenomena for about 8 years, ever since I read Mr. Green's book back there. I was pretty impressed with that, and went to some areas in the southern Sierras where screams had been heard. Heard something one night that caused me to drive down the mountain about 1:30 in the morning. I had gotten a copy of the Puyallup tapes, just knowing what to listen for. I heard something in a specific area where there had been encounters. So that kind of locked me in about 7, 8 years ago. And then about a year and a half ago, I was calling up to the Northern California area, which most of you I'm sure know is a historically rich area. I was calling Willow Creek specifically to inquire about mule packing excursions back into some of these remote valleys back there. I was wondering if any activity was still going on since the 60s with Mr. Green and Renee and Rush Pass and all around there. Well, I asked the lady on the phone, I said, do you believe Bigfoot? She goes, no, I don't believe Bigfoot. A lot of people around here believe. In fact, the guy called here yesterday from Krantz said his kid and his kid's friend had seen one in a dry creek bed. I said, do you have the guy's number? He said, well, Mr. Hodgson has the number. So I called Al Hodgson, who works at the store, and I got his opinion. Did it sound really? He goes, well, he was pretty emotional about it. It didn't sound like a hoax in his opinion. So I called the guy on the phone. Seemed like there might be something to it. I had a few days off, drove 700 miles up to Klamath, and I talked to the kids separately, and their stories jive that they were looking for snakes in this dry creek bed. The one kid looked up and said approximately 100 feet away there was this beige colored ape-like being standing there, the only movement of which was the right arm was swaying slightly. He called his friend over, Josh, before to take a look. They both looked at it for approximately 10 seconds, and then he said as they ran away, they kept looking at it, it turned and walked away 2 feet, it didn't drop down on all fours. He also described the face as being flat, occipital ridge up here. The kid didn't say occipital ridge, he knew it, no. But he said pointed head, so I thought that the possibility that this was a bear was fairly nil. So went to the area where this thing was standing. There was one deep impression in the ivy, approximately this long and about that wide. Ivy was flush to the ground. I weigh 180. I jumped up in the air as high as I could, landed on one foot. The ivy sprung back easily halfway, so it felt that whenever it made its impression, it had to have a lot of weight. But there was no toe definition, so at that point, it's just merely interesting. Well, 2 weeks later, we had decided the father of the kid, who had just moved to this area and was very upset and excited by this whole thing, he had found out that there were some old logging roads at the top of this hill, at the base of which was the sighting. So we decided, after being that nasty hill, I mean, just rainforesty, thistly, no trail, just like kind of creepy. But we decided we're going to go up this hill, video cameras, look at the old logging roads, figure out a shot, get to something around here like this for tracks. Well, we're going up the hill, we get near the top, and it gets very, very thick. We're crawling under logs and this, and we're making, I think, a reasonable amount of noise. And at no point are we thinking if there's something like this around here. It's not going to stick around because, you know, we're making noise. Well, we get near the top, and we're always trying to keep an eye out. And about 40 feet in front of me, up the hill on a slight incline, is a black object. It turned out to be a combination of a log and something underneath. And I was looking at it, and right in the middle of this object are these two brown eyes just looking at me. And I thought, Daryl, do you see them? No movement at first, but they appear to be eyes. My first impression was gorilla. That was had that kind of circular brown type of look. No movement at first, so we're trying to think, is that something reflect? Then a slight sway started. A sway going like this back, so we knew it was animate. Definitely was an animal. Well, I was trying to think, okay, because of the size of the eyes, the only other possibility that seemed to be would be a bear, but in my understanding, subsequently talking to people, that a bear will not sit there, even if it's a couple, sit there and stare at it. I mean, this thing was locked on us. It was just looking and knew that we were seeing it because it was looking right at us. And again, I didn't know that I would be speaking there, but if anybody saw the Ancient Mysteries Bigfoot thing, the videotape that I shot was shown on there, and you see the eyes of this animal. And in no way do I purport this to be conclusive evidence at all, but what happened next was pretty bizarre. We decided, because this animal, whatever it was not moving, we decided we'd move closer toward it to try to get to move and get a fuller picture of the video. God is my witness. I almost wish this didn't happen, the next thing, but it did. We took 2 steps, and the eyes of this animal, as best I can see, glowed nearly as bright as the red dot on your camera right there. I mean, we went, oh no. I mean, it did not appear, the head had not moved to reflect any light. It appeared to be bioluminescent. It appeared to be generating out of the animal. Or, another theory is both the retina opens up for some kind of defense mechanism, but that the eyes were red. We looked at each other again. What did you just see? Its eyes just turned red. Happened twice within a 10-second. It went up, gradually went down again, then it went back up again. And at that point we said, well, maybe we'll not go any closer to the animal. Because the definite feeling was stay away. So now we're a little scared. At that point, there wasn't really any fear we were feeling. It was because it seemed as wary of us as we were of it. We then decided that since you could see both of us, we would separate. And the theory being that it would think maybe instinctually that we were trying to surround it, and then it would take off while one of us keeps videotaping it to get something on there. Well, I start walking about 15 feet down to the right. And as I'm walking, as the gentleman I was with, Daryl Owen, described it, he said, we were seeing what's in, he took a step to his right, and as he was getting ready to get back into position to take, he saw a humanoid form, beige in color, take a giant step like this, and as soon as he faced it again, it froze behind some shrubbery and that's when he starts taping. Now, did anybody see the Ancient Mysteries, anything? There was a bit of a screw-up, I think, on there, well, possibly on Daryl's part as well, because I think he just gave them all the footage, because we shot that footage and stuff as we went up, and we were pointing stuff. And I think he just told them, well, it's where my finger's pointing. Well, there's a lot of footage. And what is shown in his video, I think, again, in all probability, is one of these things, because he starts filming, he starts taping, and I'm standing down there, and he's having a visibly emotional reaction. He's like, okay, it's right here, it's right here. He's like, take it easy. You hear me in the background going, take it easy, take it easy. He tapes for approximately 29 seconds. He then lowered the camera. He looked at me and starts weeping. I mean, this guy just broke down father of four, 32-year-old guy, and I was like, you know, I've always wanted to see a Sasquatch, but maybe today wouldn't be the right day. I mean, I was like, the fear in me was generating now, so I said, did you get anything on videotape? He goes, yeah, I got something. And we went down there, and we started going down there, keeping an eye on us as we went down. Nothing seemed to follow us. No smell, no sound. That was the creepy thing. I mean, we never heard, other than seeing the eyes. Well, as we go down and look at the videotape, I turn on the tape, and I'm looking, and this is what I knew because I could hear what he was saying. I knew the part of the tape. And I freeze it before I start rolling, and I'm looking. And there wasn't anything clear, you know, standing out like the Patterson film or anything like that. But right in the middle of the image, my breath was taken away. There appears to be this huge upper arm of like a gorilla type creature hanging out the side of this bush. Protruding deltoid, bicep, tricep, just hanging there. It appears white on his camera because he did not white balance his camera well. But again, he said to his eye it appeared beige. And it's just staying there. So it's on freeze mode. I'm looking at it. So I go, if that's what I think it is, then it would follow, if I follow it about a 45-degree angle up this way, there should be something in the shape of a head, same color as the arm. Well, I follow it up, and partly enshrouded by the shrubbery, there is something there, like a head, slightly going back up like this. Well, now I'm like getting creepier, because I had really played it on. So I'm going to watch that head. So if there's movement of that head, or alleged head, then I think there's something animate there, because all the shrubbery in this shot, when you look at it, is absolutely still. There's no wind. 2:30 in the afternoon, no wind at all. Push play, and this alleged head tilts 2 or 3 times and actually comes out into a shaft of light, tilting its head this way, and then stands back behind it. Well, after looking at the tape several times, we figured the reason it probably did this. I'm off camera down over here, and you hear me off camera going, Daryl, take it easy, because he's having this emotional reaction. Every time I said, take it easy, the head tilted its ear toward that direction. I think it was trying to remain hidden, but it was also wondering where the hell I had gone at that particular time. So that day that we had gone up, and the subsequent day when we went back, we found approximately 15, 20 hair samples that were analyzed by 2 different, Bob Titmus, who knows Mr. Green here, had put up the money. It was about $300 to have the hair analyzed back at Bethesda, Maryland. And then an independent biologist in Berkeley, California, a gentleman named Stephen Bonnell, analyzed the hair. Both reports came back that the hair was hominid, or of the general family of apes and man. And Bonnell specifically contrasted it with chimpanzee, orangutan, and mountain gorilla hair. And his opinion was that the hair was very similar to the gorilla hair, the protein structure, but it was not identical. It was distinguishable from that. So he said, in his opinion, it was hominid, it was some type of primate, but nothing contrasted to those particular things. And that, if you saw the special, they showed the letter, and I have a copy of that letter giving his analysis. Some of the hair was found on thistle branches, which is something I would recommend if you're into hair sample, like I am, is to, when you're in areas, to check at the 4, 5, and 6 foot level, because some of these were found 5, 6 foot up, they were just caught on them. Also, 30 feet behind where this thing was standing, when we went back the next day, we found a series of what I would best describe as like nest areas. The manzanita had all been matted down. The biggest one was about 30 feet long and about 15 feet wide. I've come to learn that elk will do something like this. It didn't, I mean, again, it was very close to where this thing was standing, so it didn't appear that something like trumping it. I mean, it was flat. I mean, it was like somebody parted it was like someone's hair just parted flat. Now, nothing had been ripped up and placed like bedding like mountain gorillas, but it had been mashed down. And some of the little holes, or not holes per se, but they were like down underneath trees where the opening to get down into the bedding area seemed to me, in my perception, that anything with antlers would have a tough time getting through. So that's why when someone mentioned the elk possibility, it didn't seem to me as though that was the case. I've been back up to that hill several times, and nothing since that time has occurred. No sound. Although, actually, last year, I went back to approximately the same time of year. I've got a Sennheiser microphone that I like to bring go to areas of recorded screams have occurred, and I sat there, stuck it up in my sunroof at the base of this hill, sat there, did my crossword puzzles, and listened, just kept it on. And God, wish I had all this stuff, but I didn't break it. I didn't know I was talking, for God's sake. But there was a very strange moan that came out of it. I mean, just like, I mean, just this weird, chesty sound that didn't sound like anything I'd heard or would associate with any animal. That's little different, but that's it. Any questions?
What was
Yeah.
the ultimate departure of this creature? You saw the eyes and then the
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, let me speculate that. What I think the scenario was that day, in my opinion, when we went back the next day, where the eyes of this particular animal was, I don't think that it was big enough to be what Daryl felt. What I think, because of the glow that I saw, and because just the general chimpiness or primateness of the animal, of the eyes, I think what had happened, we came upon this little area, and that was maybe a little one that was staying there, that was just kind of checking us out, it was staying low and watching us, and that either Big Daddy or Mama was in the area just watching over the thing. And when we moved to separate, it got in between where we were moving. In other words, it took a step over. Because, I mean, on Daryl's tape, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and most people have shown this tape to, that there is a humanoid shape from a shoulder up to the head standing there. I mean, you're not going to convince me there was a guy in a gorilla outfit. Because no one knew we were going up the hill. It took us approximately 2 hours. How did they know we didn't have a gun? I know I didn't hoax it. I'm not as reasonably be sure that Daryl was not in on it as much as I can be. So I think that was probably what happened. Although, yeah.
Can I ask a question to Robert?
Sure.
I'd like to know, because if I remember properly, he never talks about this red color, about the eyes in this book. What would be your opinion, Robert, about this change in color?
Well, I've heard a lot of stories about colors in the eyes. One of the reasons I never mentioned it in the book is because I got so many different colors reported. I wasn't sure what to make of it. So I just stood in it. I can't deal with it, so I didn't know what to do. And
It was just so weird. I mean, I tend to view this phenomenon as like purely naturalistic. I don't want to, and I don't think the glow gives it any supernatural type of, some people will, but I mean, it was there. As plain as you're holding that microphone, there is a distinct red light. I mean, it didn't appear like a refraction or anything, or a reflection, anything like that. It seemed generated. I mean, that was the case to both. So I don't know what
But if anyone suggested that there was a flying saucer behind you.
Yes. Well, we found the battery pack connected to the fake head afterwards.
This was during the daytime, wasn't it?
Yes, to approximately 2:30 in the afternoon.
Was it in the shadow? Did you ever see either by
It was back.
in the daytime?
Well, it was, again, there was partially a log there as well. And the space, if in fact it was a small one, which I would think if it was a Sasquatch, it probably was, the area was probably about this big, where it would have to be like laying down, pretty much looking straight at us. So the sun was approximately coming down from this angle, but it was, this log shadowed out enough. And again, when you look at the tape, you're running through the other possibilities. Could that be, if it doesn't act like a bear? It's a very conscious enemy. It's just looking, it's just fixated.
You're saying the red eyes were fairly close to the ground?
They were fairly close to the ground, right? Yeah, I would say no more than 2 feet up.
You told me yesterday that someone had seen the videotape thought that they might have seen
Yeah, but on the video, you see it was a combination of like seeing it, putting the camera up, and putting it down. And in all honesty, on the videotape, you don't see any of the redness. You don't. Although one person I showed it to thought they did see a glint. Only thing I say to explain to that is the video doesn't see as well as the human eye does. But I would bet everything on how. I mean, I know what I saw. He said it was verified by him. He said it just glowed red. So I don't know how to fully explain it. Maybe because it doesn't see as well, or that particular part of the spectrum wouldn't pick that up.
Right.
I don't know.
So why do you have a gun?
Because I don't fear this animal. It's my friend. No. Well, I'm based on reading Mr. Green's book, and it seems that any kind of aggressive behavior is fairly rare, and it tends to be one of a bluffing nature. I mean, unless the Teddy Roosevelt account is true.
If you had a gun with you in a situation like that, wouldn't you make an aggressive move towards it?
No, I'm actually, as much as I respect this man next to me, I don't think, I'm actually against the killing of one. I mean, I would love to find a car, and that's why I asked brought up that possibility about
If you two guys were in there together and had cameras,
right.
one of you had a gun,
Yeah.
just go in there, stir the thing up, it's gonna stand up, you're gonna get it out in the clear.
Yeah.
Is that what the situation you're looking for? It's ideal.
No, I'm not. I'm personally not. I'm against killing.
No, you don't need to shoot him.
Yeah.
He's gonna make a move.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Well, that's a good point. You'd have to be there, I guess, would be the thing. I mean, it was just, there was enough. No, man, I'll tell you, that stare was so right there.
Nothing to throw at it or what?
No. Well, I'll tell you. I'm sorry. Exactly. There was no, and even though believing intellectually that these things are relatively passive toward people, I didn't, that wouldn't seem to be the cool thing at the time. And plus, it wasn't doing anything. I don't know. It just didn't. We were though. You brought that. We were making chimp-like noises. So we were up with. You know what I actually said, John? I was going soka. I swear to, because of the Albert Austin. Like he's going to stand up and go, you know Al? So we were doing our best Diane Fossey effort at that point. But that is a good point. It just seemed not the right thing to do.
Are you still gonna go looking for him?
Oh yeah, I go out.
Gun from now on, or?
No, I don't think so. I probably maybe at night if I stayed around in a particular area, but
What would you do differently?
well, great question. I mean, I look retrospect. I probably, if I could go back in time, I would rush over to where Daryl was standing and look at what he did. But I'll tell you, it's like if you were standing there and there was a guy around the corner and had a gun on you, and I could tell by your reaction that there was something going on. It was just, he was terrified. I mean, he was terrified because this thing was 40 feet away from him, and it was like his son had told him to see, but now the reality was facing him right here, and it was freaking him out, and that spilled into me. It was kind of like, and I probably would walk up and take a look and, pop open a beer off for one and, see what happens. No. Yes?
I have a question. I saw that you brought it to Alma.
Yeah.
And you make no mention of what we saw, and that is in that darkness, separate from that standing where there was a set of eyes.
Yeah.
And underneath all the things, little eyes underneath there.
I know. I don't know how to explain. It appears underneath, there's definitely these two sets of eyes. There tend to be two smaller eyes, but it just seems like it's without a doubt there's an animal with eyes looking at it, and they appear somewhat primate-like. But there's underneath what appears to be two smaller eyes, but they would always move with it. That's why at first I speculated that perhaps it was a boar. But then I thought, no, a boar's not going to, a with anything will charge you, and the eyes didn't meet, but boar's eyes are on the side of it. These were frontal eyes peering right at you, so I don't know.
But at the time you thought it might be maybe possibly a juvenile and a baby. You still hold that?
To me, it's too indefinite to tell from the video. That would be a real leap, I think, but it is interesting. Maybe if further enhancement of the video can show something, but that hasn't happened. Anything else?
Did you lose it? Did there any noise at all?
No, that was in fact. I mean, what I think, and I've heard this from other people too. When Daryl, I think what happened was when Daryl was looking at it, and then he turned to his right to get in a slightly better position to view. I think that's when, back to his Big Daddy, Big Mama, whatever. As you hear what people as they trail them along, they'll parallel them along. It'll move when you move, because it knows that when you make a noise and you're stepping on all the, that you're covering any noise it would make. I mean, it was deadly quiet. We never heard anything. I mean, but it was.
Was it all manzanita?
It was ferny, very thick, very dense. Yeah.
No noise or movement?
No, boy, that didn't. Yeah, in retrospect, that was something that struck me. I mean, we never heard. Not a grunt. Again, no smell, nothing. But yeah.
Did you write separate reports?
I don't know. I think Daryl wrote some stuff in. I wasn't really. I mean, I know what I saw and I remember it, so I'm not big on writing it down. I guess probably for record's sake I should, but that's how I remember it.
Larry had a question.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah, keeping with the subject.
Is that Larry Lund?
I was just going
Hi,
to say.
Larry. How are you, man? I'm sorry.
Terrible. Keeping with the subject, but your normal profession, I thought maybe you might have a one-liner on the subject for us. For the people that don't know, Scott Herriott is a nightclub comedian.
My profession is I'm a stand-up comic. everybody goes, well, thanks for taking our time, Scott. Okay. But what did you want? You want if I had any material on
You know,
there?
that you might use in the club, you know,
Oh,
like,
I do some bit on this stuff, yeah. What is one state? Hopefully one that's going to laugh.
yeah.
I always like to say that the first time the reason I'm into it is that I thought I saw one when I was driving, but, you know, in that case, it turned out to be two hairy leprechauns on stilts. And that's pretty much, you know, I know it's correction when people say that when you have the one skeptic who always chimes in and goes, well, now, wait a minute, if he was seen in Northern California a month ago, how come last week he was seen in British Columbia? Yeah, like there's just one. Like, got this one Bigfoot hauling ass up and down the coast. Oh, I gotta scare the hell out of a hunter in Oregon. Wait a minute. Yeah, like he's got a van. He's driving up and down 101. And of course, the windows would have to be heavily tinted. Because he's Sasquatch. Wouldn't that be the word? That's how they discovered Sasquatch, driving a van up and down 101. We never thought to look there, did we? Somebody comes running into the office. They found the Bigfoot. Oh, God, did somebody shoot him? No, he had an open container. Cracking program. This is a what? And then I say. Then I thought the speculation on what group of people are more apt to see giants. I think there's some validity to this actually. You start thinking, well, the Indians have known about it for hundreds of years, right? But they tend to stay to the valleys, right? Then you got hikers, loggers, fishermen, and rangers. But then you know what group are more apt to see Sasquatch, and not for any particular hallucinogenic reason? Pot growers. Think about it, folks. If you're a pot grower in Northern California, where do you want to grow? The most remote, the most lush valleys. But of course, they can't tell anybody about it. It's like, well, what were you doing back there? Walking. And you know, Sasquatch has to have discovered the herb by this point. Have you ever thought about it? Sasquatch is rated. It sure is. And yeah, it'd be great to around the campfire late at night, all of a sudden, hey, you gonna eat that? Is that sufficient?
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
There's a gentleman back in the question.
Yes, sir.
The videotape
Yeah.
brings up an interesting question that I haven't had an answer yet.
Okay.
A lot of people go out.
If you're enjoying all this rare and unique content, please show your support by subscribing and leaving comments. Stay safe, stay well.